Hi guys, it's Reese, and today it is time for what seems to be everybody's most highly anticipated and favorite video of the year on my channel. It's my 2022 book roundup. So if you're new here or you haven't seen this video before, what I do at the end of every year is I round up all of the books that I read throughout the entire year, and I speed run through them, and I give you a little brief summary and analysis and my rating and if I would recommend it to you or not. I also do a big book purge at the end of the year from my shelf, so I will let you know if the book is going to be shelved and I'm going to keep it, or if I'm going to be donating it and never reading it again. So that's a lot of books to get through, and I don't want this video to be like 3 hours long. So what I'm going to do is I am just going to go in order from January to December and try to keep it under a minute, 30 seconds, tell you what I thought about the book and my rating. Over the past few years, I have been steadily increasing my reading goal. If you're curious in keeping up in real time with what I'm reading, you can follow me on Goodreads. But this year, I'm happy to report that I exceeded my reading goal and I read 31 books out of my goal of 30. I did the same thing last year where I always just end up reading one more than my goal, which is fun. Now, I discovered last year making this that if I try to take them all off of my shelf at once, the shelf will literally collapse. So I'm going to have to take them out in batches of like 5. So if you notice it looks weird, it's just because I'm taking them out in batches and then I'm gonna put them back so it's not a complete and utter disaster. But yeah, I think that's it for the intro. We have a lot of great books to get into for this year, so let's get started. Alright, so the first book that I read this year, all the way back at the beginning of January, was These Violent Delights. To be honest, I don't really remember a ton about this book, which is never a good sign. I did read it almost a year ago though. It was like a dystopian retelling of Romeo and Juliet in Shanghai. It was definitely unique and it was interesting, but there was a sequel and I didn't have any desire to read it after finishing this, so it was fun, but it was okay, which is why I would give it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. On to book number 2. It is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Oh, I cannot say enough good things about this book. In the middle of January, I went to New York City and I finished this book within the plane ride round trip. I literally, I just brought one book and I never anticipated I would finish it, but I did. If you like Taylor Jenkins Reid, you'll love this book. Amazing storyline, interesting characters. She always has that interwoven plot line to her other books. Like, the first thing that I thought of when I finished this book was this absolutely needs to be made into a movie immediately. And I actually think they're making it into a mini series, which is going to be very interesting, but this was one of my favorite books of the year and I would give it a 5 out of 5 stars. After that, I was on a Taylor Jenkins Reid kick, so I decided to finally read Daisy Jones and the Six. Again, literally cannot say enough good things about this book. I might have loved it even more than I loved Malibu Rising. It's about a band in the late 60s, early 70s, Daisy Jones and the Six, very like Fleetwood Mac-esque. The writing style is super fun. It's like you're literally reading a book about the band, and I was just obsessed with it. I could not be more excited for the TV show coming out on Amazon Prime with Sam Claflin as Billy. Like, hello. This was an absolute 5 out of 5 and was 100% one of my favorite books of the entire year that I read. For book number 4, I read Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. This was Colleen Hoover's one of her new books this year. I think she released a follow-up to It Ends With Us, but I did not read that. It was okay. It was okay. I have kind of fallen off of the Colleen Hoover train. I think this was my 3rd book of hers that I've read. It's about a woman who just got out of prison trying to connect with her daughter who she's never been able to meet before. If you really like her other books, you'll probably like this. The only book of hers that I really liked was Verity, so this was not my favorite, but it was still interesting. So I would give it a 3 out of 5 stars. Book number 5 was Mexican Gothic. I was actually immediately attracted to this book just because the cover is so gorgeous. Like, look at this. It has very spooky vibes. It's definitely like a horror thriller. It's set in 1950s Mexico about a girl who goes to help one of her family members at this really isolated, creepy mansion in the Mexican countryside. I don't think this is for everyone, but I personally really liked it. So if the storyline sounds compelling to you, I would for sure check it out. And I would give this one 4 out of 5 stars. Okay, number 6, we have The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. I'm so late to the party on this one. This was so popular last year and I never got to it, but here it is. I think I probably just had way too high of expectations for this book and I didn't love it quite as much as I thought I would, but I still did really enjoy it. It's about a girl who in 1700s France got a curse put on her so that she would live forever, but nobody would ever remember her past their initial meeting. And it was very interesting to follow along with her story and her adventures and such. And I would give this 4 out of 5 stars. Next up, I tackled the absolute monster that is Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas. Hello. This book was 800 pages long. I absolutely adore the Court of Thorn and Roses series, and so this kind of follows along on the same universe, but totally different characters. And although it was definitely very long, I still did really love it. I actually haven't gotten to the sequel yet, just because it's also 800 pages long and I just don't know if I have the strength or the energy to read another 800 page book. But length aside, I would give this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. And if you love her books, you've probably already read this, but if you haven't, I would look into it if you're feeling brave enough to tackle such a big book. Next, I read Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. This was one of my unexpected favorites of the year. I was not expecting to love this as much as I did. It is about a girl named Alex who is sent to Yale to act as a student and to oversee a secret society. And it is scary and it's fun and it's exciting and I loved it so much. The sequel is coming out early 2023 and I will be getting my hands on that immediately. I seriously love this book so much and I would give it 5 out of 5 stars. Next, I read One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This was a really quick read, a super short book about a girl who, it's like kind of a love triangle story where a girl whose husband she thought has died is now engaged to someone new, and then she finds out her husband is actually alive, and it's about how she handles that situation. It was cute, it was quick, it was nothing revolutionary or too exciting, but I would give it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was 6 Crimson Canes, which is so hard to say. I think I saw this recommended on TikTok and I decided to get it from Barnes & Noble and read it. I really didn't enjoy this book. It kind of felt like it was like a teen or like even below teen like kids book, which is not what I thought it was, but I just didn't love this one. It was about a girl who a princess and her brothers are turned into cranes by their stepmother, and it was a fantasy. If you like fantasy, maybe look into it, but I just didn't really enjoy it, and I would give this 2.5 out of 5 stars. Next up, I read Book Lovers by Emily Henry. This one was super cute about a literary agent and her enemies to lovers with a book editor. It is initially set in New York City, which is one of my favorite book settings, but then it moves to a small town for the most of the book, which is not one of my favorite settings. But other than that, it was still cute and fun. I actually have not read any of her other books, and I know they're all very popular, so I'll definitely have to look into reading some more of her books. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed this one, and I would give it 4 out of 5 stars. Book number 12 is The Royals Next Door. This one is silly. I picked it up from like the buy one get one 50% off romance table at Barnes & Noble. It's about, it's really about Harry and Meghan, but they're not called Harry and Meghan, and the girl who lives next door to them on Vancouver Island and how she gets involved with their bodyguard. I actually read this while I was in England, so anyone who saw me reading it instantly knew I was a tourist. But the premise was cute and I enjoyed it, and I would give it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Next we have Where the Crawdads Sing, which was especially popular this year because the movie came out, which is really why I read it. It's about Kaya, a girl who raises herself in the marshes of the Carolinas, and it was definitely a little slow to start, but I did really like it. I did not like the movie. I don't know if it's because I saw it right after I read the book, but I just thought the movie was super boring, and the book was definitely more interesting. Not my favorite, but definitely worth a read if this is a genre that you enjoy, and I would give it 4 out of 5 stars. Next is Lovely War. This is a historical fiction, and I actually really do enjoy historical fiction, just depending on the plot. Sometimes they get a little repetitive, but I thought this one was super unique. It's actually from the point of view of Aphrodite and a few other Greek gods, and she's kind of telling the story about, mainly it focuses on 4 people throughout World War I and II in Europe, and how she guided their souls together and their journeys, which I thought was just really interesting. And it was a unique take on historical fiction, and I really liked it, and I would give it 4.5 out of 5 stars. Next is Funny You Should Ask. This was actually based on an interview that Chris Evans did before he was going to be Captain America, and it's basically about a girl who interviews a celebrity, and they kind of have a little flirty connection during their interview, and then it talks about how she interviews him again like 10 years later and how they rekindle their romance. It was a super quick, easy read, very fun and lighthearted, and I'll give it 4 out of 5 stars. This year I discovered one of my new favorite genres of books, which is mysteries. And so next up I read The Guest List by Lucy Foley. This book is so fun. It's about a group of guests at a wedding on a remote island, and you hear from all of their different perspectives, and you hear from all of their different point of views trying to discover who the killer is at the wedding. I love hearing everybody's different stories and picking up on the clues that ultimately come back together and are important in the end. And I just had so much fun with this. I read it in like 2 days, and I would give it 4.5 out of 5 stars. After that, I picked up another one of her books called The Paris Apartment. Very similar, we hear from the perspectives of a bunch of different tenants at an apartment in Paris, and it's about a girl trying to uncover the disappearance of her brother. Again, very fun, very exciting, very enjoyable, and I would give it 4.5 out of 5 stars. Next, we have the only 3-part series that I read in this entire year. I read so many first books in a series and never wanted to pick up the next one, so I was so excited when I discovered this series, and it is the Darker Shade of Magic series by V.E. Schwab. Guys, I cannot say enough about how much I love this. I am a veteran fantasy reader. I've literally been reading fantasy since I was in like 4th grade. So I, at this point, have felt like I've really read it all and there's nothing new that I can read. And I was so pleasantly surprised when I read this book, and I instantly needed to get the second one. It follows 2 main characters, Cal and Delilah, and they live in this universe where there are alternate versions of London, and it's really just about their dynamic and traveling through the different Londons, and it's so fun and it's so exciting, and I devoured all 3 books very quickly. And as it was written by a Miss V.E. Schwab, I actually can tell you very confidently I thought it was way better than The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, but that was just my personal opinion. And as a whole, for all 3 books, I would give the series a 5 out of 5. It was just amazing and one of my favorites. Okay, moving right along, the next book I read was Carrie, Sotto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This was her new book this year, and it followed a character from Malibu Rising, Carrie Sotto, who is a professional tennis player. I actually don't think I've ever read a sports book, and I wouldn't consider myself to be somebody who would like a sports book, but I really like this, probably because it was written by Taylor Jenkins Reid, but whatever. I read this really quickly. I was really engaged and interested in the story, and I would give it 5 out of 5 stars. Next is Anxious People. I think I got this from Goodwill for like $2, and I'm really glad that I did, because I did not like this book, and it had really good reviews, so I was shocked that I didn't like it. It was just so slow and boring, and I didn't care about any of the characters, but I could definitely see why someone would like it. I thought it was going to be more similar to Lucy Foley, where it's like about a bunch of people who are stuck in an apartment with a bank robber, and it sounded very interesting, but it just was not to me. And unfortunately, I'm gonna have to give this like 2 out of 5 stars. Sorry. Next, I read The Dictionary of Lost Words. I got this from Target, and it's another historical fiction, and I'm happy to report that I really enjoyed it. It's about a girl named Esme who actually grows up with her father working for the Oxford Dictionary and the development of the first set of dictionaries, and it's about all of the words that she collects that specifically portray to women's rights and words that pertain to women that weren't included in the dictionary. And I just thought it was such an interesting concept, and the story and the characters were also very engaging, and I really liked this one, so I'll give it 4.5 out of 5 stars. For book number 24, I read The Hunting Party by Lucy Foley. This is another one of her multi-POV mysteries, and it's about a group of friends at a cabin over New Year's. Again, we're trying to solve a mystery. This one, I didn't love it as much as the other two, but I did still really enjoy it, and they're just like, these books, they're relatively short, like 300 pages, and a mystery, I just fly through them so fast. So even though the story wasn't my favorite, I still really enjoyed the book, and I will give it 4 out of 5 stars. Next, I actually read a duology, and I haven't read a duology in quite some time, but I decided to give it a chance since I enjoyed the trilogy that I read this year so much. And so I picked up V.E. Schwab's duology. I actually don't know what this duology is called, but this one is Vicious and this one is Vengeful. And it's about these college students who develop supernatural abilities after almost dying, and then their experience finding other people with supernatural abilities, and one of them is trying to kill them and the other one is trying to save them, and it's really fun. It's not so much fantasy as it is supernatural or like science fiction kind of, and I had a lot of fun with it, and I enjoyed these. I enjoyed the first one so much that I read the second one, which usually doesn't happen for me, and as a whole for this duology, I would give it 4 out of 5 stars. Okay guys, we're entering the home stretch. The next book I read was With Love from London. This one is about a woman who moves to London to live in her mother's flat after her mother dies, and she doesn't have any connection with her mother, but we kind of learn about both sides of the story, about what happened and how she discovers herself and is able to reconnect with her mother through life in London. It was cute. It was another quick read. I think I read this one on like almost completely on a flight as well, and I would give it 3.5 out of 5 stars. A couple of years ago during my reading challenge, I went on a huge autobiography kick, and I think I read like 6 or 7 autobiographies, and then I literally haven't touched an autobiography in so long, but this year I decided to try and get back into them, and so I read The Ride of a Lifetime, which looks so random, but it's by Robert Iger, and he's actually the CEO of the Walt Disney Company, and he retired, but now he's the CEO again after they fired Bob Chapek. This was written before that though, and it's about his time with the Walt Disney Company and becoming CEO and how he worked his way up through the ABC Disney ladder, and I just thought it was very, very interesting because I would like to work for Disney eventually in the film industry, and so I was just super fascinated to hear about the inner workings of the company, and I really enjoyed this. I mean, it's kind of weird to give it a ranking, but I would give it like 4.5 out of 5 stars just for my personal enjoyment, but this is not something that everybody's going to be interested in. I just found it fascinating. Next, in December, I read One Day in December, which was a super cute romance book. I read a lot of romance books, but I don't ever end up really loving any of them. This one I loved so much, and it was about a girl who sees this guy in London through the window of her bus one day, and she like literally falls in love with him, but she never sees him again until her roommate brings the guy home as her boyfriend, and it's all about navigating this tricky situation and relationship, and it spans over several years, and literally this was my favorite romance that I read this year by far, and it was just perfect for reading in the winter. So if it's January, you can still pick this up and it'll fit the vibes, don't worry. But I would give this 5 out of 5. I really liked it, especially I think I liked it more just because I don't typically love romance books, and I was very pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed it. We're at book number 30. This is the one that made me reach my reading goal, and oh my god, was it so amazing. It was Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. It's like weird again to review autobiographies because they're so personal. I cannot say enough good things about this book. I absolutely loved it. It's about Michelle Zauner and her experience growing up between South Korea and America, and her relationship with her parents, and how she's navigating her life after the death of her mom. And I know she's an artist. She goes under the name Japanese Breakfast. I actually haven't listened to any of her music, but I really don't think that matters, just because at the bottom of it, it's just a really relatable, heartwarming, devastating story, and I think that if you have the chance to read it, I would definitely pick it up. It's pretty short and you will be able to blast through it, but I I really, really loved it so much. It was 100% one of my favorite books of the year, and I would give it 5 out of 5 stars. And last but not least, I went on a cruise over Christmas and decided to be an overachiever and read another book on the cruise because why not? So I finished Maybe in Another Life by Taylor Jenkins Reid, which ended up meaning that I read 31 out of 30 books this year. Unfortunately, I've loved all of Taylor Jenkins Reid's books that I read this year. This one was not my favorite. It's one of her earlier books, so I can't blame her that it's not the best because she's improved a lot since this. But it's about a girl and her experience. She goes out one night and she has to make a decision to go home with her friends or stay out with a guy. And then it splits into 2 parallel timelines about what her life would be like if she made either decision, which definitely isn't my favorite style of book. I would rather just have one timeline, so it didn't really work for me. But I mean, it wasn't terrible. It just definitely was not my favorite. Definitely my least favorite of her books that I've read. And I would give it 3.5 out of 5 stars. And that concludes all of the books that I read this year. Oh my god. This was the most books that I've ever read in a year, and I'm very proud of myself, and I'm going to tentatively set my goal for 35 books next year. I keep raising it by 5, and I really want to go to 40. I just feel like that's too much, but if I'm making a good pace, I will perhaps raise it to 40. We'll see. So yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know if you read any of these books this year and what you thought, or if you're gonna pick up any of these books. And if you have any recommendations for books to check out in the new year, let me know. I have about 2 or 3 on file to start soon. And yeah, again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!